Okay, so today we're going to take a deep dive into some pretty unsettling stuff going on in Wind Gap, Missouri.
Yeah, this one's really gotten under my skin, I have to say.
I know, right? It's like something out of a nightmare, and we have all this material to go through about the deaths of two young girls, Natalie Keene and Ann Nash.
Right, so we've got a news report here. It goes into detail about finding Natalie Keene's body and how the community reacted right away. And then we also have some personal thoughts and observations, things people have said and noticed, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and I think our goal here today is to try and, piece together the facts about what happened,
Sure.
try to get a feel for the impact on the town, everybody in Wind Gap, and then look at, what are people saying? What are the theories floating around?
Yeah, for sure. It's so early in the investigation, but there's already so much to unpack here.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So let's just jump right in. Okay, Natalie Keene, her body was found on May 14th, and it's a truly awful discovery.
Yeah, the article says they found her in this little space between the Cut and Curl Beauty Parlor and Bifty's Hardware. It's uh It's a weird spot, right? Like, someone could easily miss her there, but it's also right out in the open.
Right, right. And she was just 10 years old.
Just a kid,
It's even more disturbing when you realize this isn't the first time something like this has happened in Wind Gap.
right? Less than a year ago, just 9 months. Actually, 9-year-old Ann Nash was found dead in a creek nearby.
Last August.
Yeah, and the similarities between these two cases, they're just chilling.
Both girls were strangled.
And and this is the really strange part. The killer took their teeth.
In both cases.
Yeah, I mean, that's not something you see every day. That's a very specific and disturbing pattern.
I can't even imagine what the families are going through reading Natalie's brother, John Keene's reaction. He's 18 years old and he said, "I'm sorry she came here because now she's dead. Someone killed my little sister." I mean, that's just raw grief.
It's heartbreaking. And it really hits you when you see how he described Natalie, as this goofy kid, a tomboy, so full of life and imagination.
He even mentioned how she made up her own language with a whole alphabet.
I know. It's just so sad to think about a bright young life cut short like that.
So, where does the investigation stand now? Are the police any closer to finding out who did this?
Well, the news report says the Wing Gap police are working with this homicide detective, Richard Willis from Kansas City, and they're admitting they don't have much to go on right now.
That's not surprising. I guess these cases are always tough.
Right, but it's standard procedure too. They can't rule anyone out in the community at this point. They have to consider all the angles before they can really focus on a suspect.
But they're not ruling out the possibility that the killer could be someone from outside Wind Gap.
Exactly. It's too early to tell for sure.
There was also mention of a possible witness, a young boy who claims he saw something.
Yeah, apparently he said he saw a woman taking Natalie, but, a police source said they think it's more likely a man from Wind Gap who's responsible.
So right away you have these different theories and possibilities. It makes
Yeah.
it really hard to get a clear picture of what might have happened.
For sure. And then you've got the local dentist, James L. Jellard, weighing in.
What did he have to say?
Well, he said, from his professional opinion, taking out teeth the way it was done in these cases would probably take someone pretty strong.
So that kind of supports the idea that it could be a man.
Right. But it's just one piece of the puzzle.
So obviously these murders have had a huge impact on Wind Gap. How are people coping?
I mean, you can imagine the fear. It's palpable. The news report says people are rushing out to buy security locks. The local hardware store has sold like 3 dozen since Natalie was killed.
Wow.
And over at the gun and rifle dealer, they've had a ton of people applying for firearms permits, over 30 in just a few days.
That's intense. I guess people don't feel safe.
Not at all. It's like that sense of security of community has been completely shattered. People are afraid of each other. They're afraid of what's lurking in the shadows.
And it's not just about protecting themselves from some unknown attacker.
Right. It goes deeper than that. It's this loss of trust,
Hmm.
this fear that danger could be coming from anyone, anywhere.
Dan Arsenia, the gun store owner, his comment really struck me. He said a lot of people in Wind Gap already had rifles for hunting. So these new purchases are more about personal safety. It's about being prepared for the worst.
Exactly. It's a whole different level of fear.
I read about Robert Nashan's father. He's actually increasing his own arsenal of weapons to protect his other kids.
He's got 2 daughters and a son. I can't imagine the terror he must be living with right now, losing one child and then having to worry constantly about the safety of his other children.
It's just heartbreaking. And, he talked about Anne. She was a tomboy, loved climbing trees, riding her bike, and that's actually what she was doing when she was abducted.
It's a stark reminder that even the most innocent everyday activities can be shattered by violence.
And it's not just the physical safety that people are worried about. There's a spiritual impact, too.
Absolutely.
Hmm.
Father Louis Bluel from the local Catholic Church, he's noticed a big increase in people attending Sunday Mass, and a lot of people are coming to him for spiritual guidance and advice.
Makes sense. People are looking for solace, trying to make sense of this senseless tragedy, searching for hope in the face of such darkness.
It's a natural human response to trauma and grief, trying to find meaning and comfort in something bigger than ourselves.
So I think it's time to move away from the straight news reporting and look at some of the more personal observations and reflections that we have in our source material.
Yeah, this is where things get a little more nuanced, and we start to see the human side of this story,
Yeah.
the individual experiences and the dynamics within the community.
Right. Like there's this seemingly small detail about middle initials and a comment about Missouri being in the Midwest. It's like a tiny glimpse into the everyday life of this town that stands in such stark contrast to the horror that's unfolded there.
It adds this layer of authenticity, these little touches of personality that make the story feel real and immediate.
And then there's the fact that some parts of an interview with the James Capisi were left out of the report, and a quote from John Keene's mother was also omitted.
That's really interesting, right? It shows how the story is being shaped for public consumption. Certain details are highlighted while others are left out.
It makes you think about the editorial decisions behind the news, what gets included and what gets excluded, and why.
It's a reminder that even the most objective reporting involves choices, and those choices can influence how we perceive events.
And there's this really significant detail about the police supposedly focusing on a local suspect, which turns out to not be entirely true.
Right, that was actually a fabrication, an amalgam of different people's thoughts, kind of pieced together by the reporter.
That wasn't even shared with the editor.
No, which suggests a conscious decision to present a certain narrative.
It's unsettling to think that the information we're getting isn't always the full picture.
It definitely raises questions about objectivity and bias in reporting.
And you can feel the tension surrounding the story after it was published. There's this real anxiety about potential backlash.
Right, the fear of angry calls from John's mother or the detective Richard, it shows how sensitive the situation is and how even the act of reporting can have consequences.
Then there's this really evocative passage about childhood smells, particularly the smell of bleach, and how it later morphed into something more animalistic.
Yeah.
It's such a visceral and almost surreal detail amidst all this darkness.
It's a really powerful way to convey the psychological impact of these events. Beyond the immediate reactions and investigations, these tragedies are triggering personal memories and reflections, forcing people to confront their own pasts and their perceptions of the world around them.
Right, it's like this collision of innocence and horror.
Exactly. And the fact that bleach, the smell of cleaning and sterility, was the most prominent scent from childhood is really striking. It's like a subconscious attempt to sanitize or erase something dark or unpleasant.
And then comes the first angry call, but it's not from who you might expect. It's from a Meredith Wheeler, and her reaction is intense.
Yeah, she's furious about being left out of the story. And her comments about John are really possessive, saying, I practically own him. It gives you a glimpse into the tangled relationships and dynamics in this town.
And her insistence that she's the most important person to John in his grief, it's all very telling.
It definitely speaks to her character and maybe a need for control or validation.
The scene with Amma and Adora on the porch is really unsettling, too. There's so much unspoken tension there.
It's like this strange performance, Emma pretending to be sick and Dodora hovering over her with this exaggerated concern, is all very staged and uncomfortable. And then you've got Alan watching them through the screen door. It adds this feeling of being observed, like there are secrets and hidden motives lurking beneath the surface.
Right. And that seemingly innocent suggestion from Adora that Camille should try harder to make Amma feel comfortable, it comes across as manipulative.
It's subtle, but there's a definite undercurrent of control and manipulation in their interactions.
And then there's the whole dynamic between Camille and Richard. It's complicated, to say the least.
Yeah, their conversations are this blend of professional interest and playful teasing. And then there are these moments of physical closeness that are a little inappropriate considering the circumstances.
Like when he leans in to help her with her seatbelt.
Right. And then that proposition he makes, answering 3 questions in exchange for a tour of Windgap's hidden spots.
Right.
It's like there's this transactional element to their relationship.
It's definitely a strange mix of attraction and professional boundaries.
His comment about the Mylar balloon with the teeth marks is really haunting, though. It's like this perfect symbol of the whole situation, this clash of innocence and horror.
Right, this everyday object associated with celebration and joy, defaced by this gruesome reminder of the murders. It's really chilling.
And then Their visit to the old school house, it's a desolate place filled with graffiti, empty liquor bottles, dead roses. It's clearly been a hangout spot for teenagers, but there's also this sense of something darker lurking there, especially since it's so close to the creek where Ann Nash's body was found.
It adds to the overall atmosphere of unease and hidden secrets.
Their conversation takes a personal turn at one point with questions about boyfriends and girlfriends. It's like a brief moment of normalcy amidst all the darkness.
It humanizes them a little.
Yeah.
It reminds us that they're real people with their own lives and histories, even as they're caught up in this horrific investigation.
And Richard is surprisingly charming, even though he doesn't seem like Camille's usual type.
Right. And then his comment about wishing he had grown up in Wind Gap after their kiss, it's unexpected and adds another layer to their complicated dynamic.
It's like he's romanticizing this place despite all the darkness that surrounds it.
But then we're brought back to the reality of the investigation with the descriptions of the unsuccessful searches for clues.
The yellow plaid hair ribbon, the shoe print that didn't match the blood type that didn't make sense. It's all very frustrating and emphasizes the lack of progress in the case.
It feels like they're hitting dead end after dead end.
And then their conversation about where the murders might have happened is just chilling, especially Camille's responses.
Right, when she says, my car or my home or somewhere that I could scrub down well, it's a disturbingly practical and dark way of thinking.
It speaks to a certain detachment or maybe a coping mechanism in the face of such horror.
But it also highlights the potential for violence to erupt anywhere, even in the most familiar and private spaces.
The exchange about the timing of the teeth removal is crucial too. It adds another layer of gruesomeness to the crimes.
Right. The fact that the teeth were taken out right after the girls were strangled while there was still blood present, it's a horrifying detail.
And then Camille's thought about a woman's hand holding the pliers. It introduces another possibility into the investigation.
It challenges the assumption that the killer must be a man.
Richard's assessments of James Capisi and John Keene are interesting too.
Yeah, he says James seems genuinely scared, but his story doesn't fit the usual profile of someone who would do something like this.
It doesn't feel right to him, which suggests that he's relying on his intuition and experience as much as the hard evidence.
And when it comes to John Keene, Richard acknowledges that he fits the age profile and has a connection to a victim.
But his public displays of grief strike Richard as a little off, not typical for a teenage boy.
So he's suspicious, but he doesn't have anything concrete to go on.
It's a delicate balance between following your gut and avoiding jumping to conclusions.
The scene between Camille and her mother is just devastating. It reveals so much about their deeply dysfunctional relationship.
It's painful to witness. Camille's mother is drunk and accusatory. She calls Camille cold and distant. And then she reveals this deeply unsettling thing about trying to get close to the murdered girls in order to understand her own daughter.
It's a twisted and disturbing way of thinking.
And then that final threat to carve her name on Camille's skin, it's terrifying.
It shows how deeply damaged Camille's mother is and how that damage is impacting Camille.
It's no wonder that Camille's thoughts turned to self-harm and drowning after that encounter. It's a desperate attempt to escape the pain and trauma.
It's a stark reminder that these murders are not isolated incidents. They're part of a larger web of pain and dysfunction.
The scene at Meredith's house is this jarring juxtaposition. You have this seemingly carefree pool party with teenagers in their bikinis, and then you have this dark undercurrent of suspicion and tension.
Right, it's like the surface normalcy of life in Wind Gap is just a thin veneer covering up something much more sinister.
The interaction between Amma and John at the pool is particularly disturbing.
Yeah, Amma's only 13, but she's acting incredibly provocative towards John, and he seems strangely detached.
And then their cryptic exchange, "It'll be your turn someday."
Ah.
It's really creepy and suggests that there's something much darker going on between them.
Camille's reaction is totally understandable. She's uncomfortable with the whole thing.
It's inappropriate given Amma's age and the context of the murders.
Even the brief conversation Camille has with John is revealing. He acknowledges the story, but his only comment about Natalie is that she was the nice part.
It's a strange thing to say, and it makes you wonder what he's not saying.
And then Amma makes this really cool remark to John about his urges. It's so malicious.
It's like she's deliberately trying to hurt him, and it fuels the suspicion surrounding him.
The other girls' reactions to John leaving are strange too. They're so dismissive, like they don't even care.
It speaks to a lack of empathy or maybe a deliberate avoidance of the emotional weight of the situation.
But Jode's reaction is different. She seems genuinely troubled by John leaving.
It hints at a deeper understanding or maybe a hidden connection between them.
So then we get to Camille's conversation with Meredith, and it's a turning point in the story.
Meredith's house is described as this perfectly curated space, like something out of a catalog. It's this artificial perfection that clashes with the darkness she's about to reveal.
She starts by apologizing for Emma's behavior and describes her as very needy, especially when it comes to boys.
It's like she's trying to explain away Amma's actions.
But then she gives this insightful explanation for why people might be quick to suspect John.
She says he's an outsider, he's smart and worldly and good-looking, so it's easier for people to believe that he's capable of evil.
It's like they need to distance themselves from the darkness. They need to believe that it came from outside their community.
It's a way of protecting their own sense of innocence and security.
Meredith insists that John is innocent, but her rehearsed quote about God taking the girls to heaven feels so fake.
It's like she's performing grief rather than genuinely expressing it.
And it becomes clear that her main motivation for giving the interview is to get her name in the article.
It's all about self-promotion and image management.
But then she drops this bombshell. She says that both Anne and Natalie were biters with serious tempers.
It completely changes our perception of the victims.
We go from seeing them as innocent and defenseless to seeing them as potentially aggressive and volatile.
And Meredith insists that this was a well-known fact about them, that they had a history of biting people.
She even shows Camille the scars on her hand from when Natalie did her, and she's missing a piece of her earlobe.
She goes into graphic detail about how Natalie would bite and kick and scream. It's really disturbing.
And apparently Anne was even worse. Meredith says a lot of people in Wind Gap have her teeth marks, including Camille's own mother.
She describes this specific incident where Anne bit Camille's mother during a tutoring session.
It's a vivid and disturbing image. Anne pulling her hair and biting her wrist so hard that she needed stitches.
It's a powerful and unsettling reminder that even children can be capable of violence.
So we're left with this incredibly complex and disturbing picture of the events in Wind Gap.
We have two young girls murdered in horrific ways, a community gripped by fear and suspicion, conflicting theories about the killer, and this shocking revelation about the victim's own aggressive behavior.
And so many questions remain unanswered. Who is responsible for these crimes? What was the motive behind the removal of the teeth? How does the fact that the girls were biters fit into the larger picture?
And what other secrets and lies are hidden beneath the surface of this seemingly idyllic town?
Meredith's account forces us to question everything we thought we knew about this case.
It challenges our assumptions about innocence and guilt about victims and perpetrators.
It makes you wonder how well we really know the people around us, even in a small town like Wind Gap.
In a place where everyone believes they know everyone else, how easily can darkness hide in plain sight?
And what happens when the people we think are innocent turn out to have a capacity for violence?
These are unsettling questions that linger long after the story is over.
Thanks for joining us for this deep dive. It's been a tough one.
Until next time.
Stay safe out there.